There is a quiet panic spreading through America's rental markets. For years, landlords believed they were untouchable. They leveraged cheap loans, bought up entire neighborhoods, converted family homes into short-term rentals, and chased record highs in rent growth. But in 2025, the tide has turned. Airbnb revenues have collapsed in key vacation markets. Oversupply is crushing once red-hot Sunbelt cities. Local tenants have more options than ever, and thousands of investors are discovering the harsh truth no one warned them about. Real estate does not always go up. Today you will see the 10 American cities where landlords are losing everything. Homes sitting untouched, rents cut 30% just to get a single application, condos in foreclosure, Airbnb hosts abandoning properties, and investors walking away from loans they can no longer carry. This is the collapse few predicted. And if you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to Discover the Nation, because we break down the real estate stories that actually matter and impact millions of Americans. Now, let us begin. Number 10. Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix was once the poster child of America's investor gold rush. From 2020 through 2022, the metro absorbed more investor purchases than almost any market in the West. Private equity firms bought thousands of single-family homes at prices 40% higher than pre-pandemic levels. Smaller landlords jumped in too, convinced they were buying into an unstoppable growth cycle. Airbnb hosts pushed aggressively into popular suburbs like Scottsdale, Mesa, and Gilbert, where nightly rates soared above $250 during peak season. But the story shifted rapidly. By 2024, Phoenix had more new apartment units under construction than almost any city in the country. Entire corridors, from Tempe to North Phoenix, filled with mid-rise communities that all opened around the same time. In 2025, the market is absorbing these units at a painfully slow pace. Rent growth that once pushed double-digit increases has now fallen into negative territory. In many buildings, one-bedroom apartments that rented for $1,800 2 years ago now list for around $1,500 or less with incentives. Landlords who bought at peak pricing are carrying mortgages that assumed constant occupancy and rising rents. Instead, they face tenants who could now choose from dozens of discounted units. Concessions have become the norm: free rent for 6 to 8 weeks, zero deposit move-ins, application fees waived. Some landlords are even offering $200 gift cards if tenants sign within 48 hours. The short-term rental market has taken an even harder hit. Airbnb revenue across the Phoenix and Scottsdale region is down roughly 40% from its peak. Homes that once booked every weekend now sit empty for weeks. Nights that used to command $200 now struggle to fetch $120. Investors who relied on tourism seasonality are discovering that supply far outpaces demand. Entire neighborhoods, once dominated by short-term rentals, now sit partially vacant, with dark windows and silent streets. Phoenix, once the symbol of limitless demand, has become one of the clearest warnings for the entire nation. Overexposure, oversupply, and overly optimistic projections have collided, and landlords are the ones paying the price.
Number 9. Tampa, Florida. Few markets in the Southeast experienced a faster shift than Tampa. Between 2019 and 2022, the region became a magnet for investors fleeing the high prices of states like California and New York. Tampa's sunshine, relative affordability, and rapid in-migration convinced many that the city's growth would last indefinitely. Investor purchases surged in Hillsborough and Pasco counties. Airbnb listings tripled in neighborhoods near the waterfront, and long-term rents climbed to levels locals had never seen before. A typical 3-bedroom home that rented for $1,800 in 2019 climbed above $2,700 by late 2022. Then, the pendulum swung back. Insurance costs in Florida began rising sharply. Premiums that once cost $3,000 annually jumped to over $7,000 for many properties. Some landlords received quotes exceeding $10,000, depending on coverage and location. At the same time, Tampa's breakneck population inflow slowed. Combined with a wave of new apartment construction stretching from Carrollwood to Wesley Chapel, the rental market became oversaturated. By early 2025, vacancy reached its highest level in nearly 10 years. Landlords who once held waiting lists now struggled to attract applications, even after lowering prices. Many properties that rented for $2,600 last year are now listed for $2,200 or less. The decline is more pronounced in investor-dense suburbs. In Riverview, Brandon, and Wesley Chapel, entire streets of similar investor-owned homes are competing for the same limited pool of renters. This has put enormous pressure on landlords who purchased with variable mortgages or short-term financing. Airbnb operators are experiencing their own collapse. Tourism has shifted toward more affordable Gulf Coast destinations like Sarasota and Clearwater. Average nightly rates in Tampa have dropped 20 to 30% across many listings. Units that once generated $5,000 a month in high season now struggle to bring in $3,000. After insurance, utilities, cleaning fees, and mortgage payments, many landlords are operating in the red. Behind the scenes, landlords admit they are barely hanging on. For Tampa, the investor era that looked unstoppable only a few years ago is breaking apart, and the unraveling is far from over.
Number 8. Austin, Texas. Austin was once the crown jewel of America's rental boom. For nearly a decade, the city symbolized rapid tech-driven growth, soaring rents, and endless optimism. Investors from across the country poured money into the metro, convinced that Austin's demand would never cool. Developers responded by building at a pace that even major coastal cities could not match. Luxury towers rose across downtown. Mid-rise communities stretched into East Austin and South Lamar. Massive master-planned subdivisions in places like Pflugerville, Kyle, and Manor added thousands of new single-family rentals to the market all at once. But the pipeline became too large too fast. By late 2024, Austin had more new apartments under construction per capita than almost any other metro in America. As these units reached completion, the market hit an oversupply wall. Rent declines followed immediately. A one-bedroom apartment that averaged around $1,900 in 2022 can now be found closer to $1,600 in many buildings. Some new communities are offering 8 weeks of free rent to keep occupancy from falling further. Vacancy rates are climbing sharply. In several newly built luxury towers, more than 30% of units remain empty months after opening. Investors who bought these buildings or individual condos during peak pricing now face carrying costs that far exceed incoming rent. Many small landlords who purchase single-family homes for rental income report that mortgage payments and taxes have outpaced achievable rent by several $100s per month. Austin's short-term rental market is under similar pressure. Airbnb hosts who once charged $300 per night during festivals or summer weekends are now forced to list their properties for around $150 or less. Occupancy has become inconsistent, and in some cases income no longer covers mortgages, cleaning fees, and utilities. Entire blocks in East Austin that once thrived on short-term rental tourism now feel quieter, with far fewer visitors and hosts slashing their rates to stay competitive. The investor dream that defined Austin for years has shifted into a phase of caution and retreat. What was once one of the hottest rental markets in the nation has become one of the clearest examples of oversupply eclipsing demand. Number 7. Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta became the epicenter of institutional landlord activity over the past decade. Wall Street firms purchased tens of thousands of single-family homes across Fulton, Gwinnett, DeKalb, and Cobb counties, converting entire neighborhoods into rentals. That momentum inspired countless smaller investors who entered the market believing that renting out homes in Atlanta would remain easy and profitable forever. For a while, it was true. Rents rose quickly. Population surged, vacancy stayed extraordinarily low. Then the tide shifted. By 2024, the pace of construction across the metro exploded. Mid-rise apartments and large build-to-rent communities began opening at a speed that outmatched demand. In 2025, Atlanta has one of the highest rates of new supply deliveries in the Southeast. Concessions are everywhere. 2 months of free rent has become standard in many new buildings. Deposits are reduced or eliminated entirely. Some landlords are offering prepaid gift cards or rent credits just to secure applications. Older properties are struggling the most. Units that rented for $1,700 a month in 2022 now sit vacant unless priced closer to $1,400. Investor-owned homes in suburbs like McDonough, Lawrenceville, and Stonecrest are sitting empty for 60 to 90 days at a time. Mortgage payments, property taxes, and rising insurance costs have pushed many landlords into loss territory. Those who purchased homes at peak pricing are under even more financial pressure. The Airbnb landscape is also unraveling. Hosts in Midtown, Buckhead, Atlantic Station, and Old Fourth Ward are reporting the lowest occupancy rates they have seen in years. Nights that once guaranteed bookings now go empty, even after significant price cuts. Some hosts have shifted their short-term rentals into long-term leases, only to discover that long-term demand is not strong enough to support their mortgage. Atlanta was considered a safe and predictable investment city. In 2025, landlords are discovering that it has transformed into one of the most competitive and unforgiving rental markets in the region. The assumptions investors relied on for years no longer hold true, and the financial consequences are becoming impossible to ignore.
Number 6. Orlando, Florida. Orlando spent the last decade riding a tourism-fueled investment wave. Investors from across the country snapped up vacation homes at rapid speed, convinced that theme parks and year-round travel demand would guarantee endless occupancy. Entire communities in Kissimmee, Four Corners, and Davenport were built almost exclusively for short-term rentals. For years, the strategy worked. Nightly rates soared, calendars filled months in advance, and landlords regularly earned $4,000 to $6,000 a month during peak seasons. But the momentum collapsed quickly. By 2024, the number of short-term rental listings in Greater Orlando more than doubled, far outpacing visitor growth. In 2025, tourism has softened further as travelers shift toward cheaper Gulf Coast and Carolina destinations. Oversaturation has crushed host income. Many Airbnb owners now report revenue falling 30 to 40% from just 2 years ago. Homes that once commanded $300 per night now struggle to book even at $175. Entire vacation home subdivisions look half-occupied. Drive through them and you see dark windows, empty driveways, and properties quietly listed for sale at discounted prices. Some investors have taken losses of $20,000 to $50,000 simply to escape rising mortgage and upkeep costs. Long-term rentals offer little relief. Orlando has seen a surge of new apartment construction across Lake Nona, Winter Garden, Maitland, and Winter Park. These brand-new units offer modern amenities at competitive rates, forcing landlords to cut prices. Two-bedroom apartments that rented for $2,200 in 2022 now sit closer to $1,800, often with free rent incentives. Investors holding multiple properties are under intense pressure. Rising insurance, climbing HOA fees, and inconsistent occupancy are draining reserves faster than many expected. The last time Orlando experienced a short-term rental collapse this severe was during the Great Recession. In 2025, the pain has returned, and the market has become a cautionary tale of what happens when an economy built on tourism faces too much supply and not enough stability. Number 5. Denver, Colorado. Denver was once the darling of the Mountain West, a city driven by population growth, high-income transplants, and a booming outdoor lifestyle economy. Investors poured in between 2020 and 2022, snapping up duplexes, triplexes, and single-family rentals at prices 20 to 30% above pre-pandemic levels. The belief was simple: Denver's momentum would last forever, but trouble was already building. As demand peaked, developers accelerated construction at a pace the market could not absorb. Luxury towers rose downtown, mid-rise buildings filled Highland, Cherry Creek, and Rhino. Suburban expansions around Aurora and Lakewood added thousands more units. By the time these projects finally delivered, tenant demand had cooled sharply. In 2025, Denver is experiencing one of the Mountain West's most dramatic oversupply shocks. Rents have flattened or dropped across nearly every submarket. A one-bedroom apartment that rented for $1,900 in early 2023 now lists closer to $1,600 in competitive buildings. High-end towers are offering up to 2 months of free rent, discounted parking, and move-in bonuses to attract applicants. Older properties face even heavier pressure. Many landlords bought with adjustable-rate loans that have since reset at much higher interest rates. Refinancing is difficult due to stricter lending standards and declining valuations. For owners of duplexes purchased in 2021, rising mortgage payments combined with stagnant rents have erased most profit margins. Short-term rental hosts are fighting the same battle. In Capitol Hill, Five Points, Uptown, and Highlands, occupancy has dropped as visitors choose from a growing supply of newer, amenity-rich units. Airbnb hosts who once earned $300 a night on peak weekends now list their properties for around $150 simply to stay competitive. Denver's investor boom relied on renters competing for scarce supply. In 2025, that equation has reversed. A surge of newer, cheaper inventory has flooded the market, and landlords are caught between rising costs and declining income. Denver has entered a reckoning few investors ever imagined, exposing how quickly a hot market can turn when expectations outrun fundamentals.
Number 4. Miami, Florida. Miami's rental market once felt invincible. Driven by global investors, foreign buyers, remote workers, and domestic transplants, the city experienced one of the most dramatic real estate booms in the nation. Investors purchased high-rise condos at record prices and converted many units into short-term rentals with expectations of premium returns. For a while, the strategy worked. Brickell, Wynwood, Edgewater, and downtown Miami became hotspots where nightly rates soared and occupancy remained consistently high. But Miami's investor-driven model has collided with a perfect storm in 2025. First, insurance costs surged beyond anything landlords expected. Policies that once cost $4,000 annually are now exceeding $10,000 or more. Many condo buildings approved special assessments to cover rising insurance and maintenance expenses, adding hundreds of dollars per month to landlord operating costs. Second, tenant demand has softened. The wave of remote workers who flocked to Miami during the pandemic has slowed. At the same time, a record number of new apartment towers have opened across the metro. Competition is fierce, and landlords are reacting with aggressive concessions: free parking, 2 months of free rent, slashed security deposits. Luxury buildings that rented one-bedroom units for $3,200 in 2022 are now advertising prices closer to $2,600 with incentives. The short-term rental market has deteriorated even faster. Airbnbs that once generated $5,000 per month are now bringing in $3,000 or less. After HOA fees, utilities, cleaning costs, and insurance, many operators end each month with negative cash flow. Some condo associations have tightened rules or banned short-term rentals altogether, forcing investors to convert their units to long-term leases where rent no longer covers expenses. Foreclosures are rising quietly in high-rise towers as investors fail to keep up with escalating costs. Units sit empty in parts of Brickell and downtown for months at a time. Renters, for the first time in years, hold the bargaining power. Miami relied heavily on investor optimism, but in 2025, that optimism has been replaced with financial strain, falling occupancy, and a growing sense of instability among landlords who once believed the market could never turn.
Number 3. Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville once felt unstoppable. The city blended booming tourism, a fast-growing population, and one of the hottest housing markets in the South. Investors of every size rushed in. Corporate landlords snapped up suburban homes. Smaller investors bought condos and duplexes, expecting steady rent growth. Waves of Airbnb hosts turned East Nashville, the Nations, and Germantown into dense, short-term rental corridors. For years, buyers believed occupancy would rise forever. But in 2025, that momentum has broken. Construction far outpaced population growth. Developers unloaded thousands of new apartments, townhomes, and built-to-rent communities within months, flooding the market and forcing landlords into competition they had not seen in over a decade. Renters suddenly had choices: newer amenities, better locations, sharper pricing. In neighborhoods where homes once rented in days, landlords now wait weeks. A two-bedroom that commanded $2,300 in 2022 now lists closer to $1,800, with waived fees and free rent incentives. Downtown luxury towers have cut even deeper. Rooftop pools, gyms, co-working lounges, and designer common areas no longer command premium prices. These units now lease for hundreds less than their peak. The short-term rental market is even more strained. Nashville's number of Airbnbs grew far faster than tourism. Visitors now spread across an oversupplied inventory, making occupancy unpredictable. Hosts who once relied on premium pricing during concerts and festivals report nightly rates down nearly 30%. Many struggle to cover mortgages, HOA fees, and rising cleaning costs. Investors who expected endless demand are learning that Nashville's boom leaned more on optimism than fundamentals. With supply overwhelming demand, many landlords are quietly exiting, selling properties at reduced prices, or taking losses to cut their exposure. Nashville has become one of America's clearest examples of how quickly a hot housing market can reverse when fundamentals no longer support the hype.
Number 2. Las Vegas, Nevada. Las Vegas has experienced one of the most painful investor reversals in the country. During the pandemic, the valley became a magnet for investors looking for profitable rentals, both long-term and short-term. Investor purchases surged across Summerlin, Henderson, North Las Vegas, and the Southwest Valley. Airbnb listings multiplied as hosts capitalized on tourism demand and cheap financing. Developers added fuel to the fire by launching a wave of new apartment projects designed to accommodate the explosive population growth. But the expectations did not match the reality. By 2024 and 2025, the pace of in-migration slowed, tourism growth leveled off, and the pipeline of new units kept coming. The result is an oversaturated rental market struggling to support its inflated investor demand. Vacancy rates have climbed rapidly. Some apartment communities report double-digit vacancy percentages. In certain pockets of the valley, 1 in every 4 units is sitting empty. Rents are falling faster than almost anywhere in the West. A two-bedroom apartment that rented for $1,900 in 2022 now averages closer to $1,600 in comparable areas. Newer luxury properties are offering 6 to 8 weeks of free rent and sharply discounted deposits just to maintain occupancy. Landlords holding older properties are cutting prices even deeper to compete. Airbnb operators face similar turmoil. With more hosts competing for the same pool of visitors, nightly pricing has collapsed. Properties that once brought in $500 a night during peak weekends now struggle to fetch $200. Many units sit unbooked for long stretches, especially in areas far from the Strip or major attractions. After mortgage payments, utilities, cleaning costs, and platform fees, thousands of hosts are operating at a steep loss. Unable to refinance at affordable rates and overwhelmed by vacancies, some landlords have begun walking away from their properties entirely. Las Vegas has shifted from investor darling to investor disaster in just a few years. And in 2025, landlords feel the full weight of a rental economy that simply cannot sustain the supply investors built.
Number 1. Scottsdale, Arizona. Scottsdale stands at the center of America's short-term rental crisis. During the boom years, investors from across the country paid record-high prices for homes in what was considered one of the most profitable Airbnb markets in the nation. Nightly rates skyrocketed, occupancy was strong, and landlords believed the demand from tourists, bachelor parties, golf trips, and seasonal visitors would remain unlimited. In neighborhoods like Old Town, North Scottsdale, and McCormick Ranch, entire streets became Airbnb destinations. But 2025 has shattered that expectation. The Scottsdale Airbnb market is oversaturated beyond anything investors prepared for. Thousands of new listings appeared within a short period, far outpacing the number of visitors. At the same time, travelers began choosing more affordable destinations across Arizona, Nevada, and the Rocky Mountain region. As a result, nightly rates have fallen sharply. Homes that once earned $300 to $400 a night now sit closer to $150 to $200. Occupancy has plummeted. Many investor-owned homes sit empty for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. Others receive sporadic bookings that fail to cover even a fraction of their carrying costs. And those carrying costs are enormous. Mortgage payments on homes purchased at peak pricing often exceed $4,000 per month. Add in utilities, pool maintenance, cleaning services, landscaping, and insurance premiums that have surged across Arizona, and many hosts are losing thousands of dollars monthly. The situation has triggered a wave of distress. Investor-owned homes are now appearing on the market at discounted prices. Some sellers openly admit they cannot sustain the negative cash flow. Others face pre-foreclosure filings after falling behind on payments. Neighborhoods once buzzing with short-term rental activity now feel noticeably quieter as investors shut down operations or sell off properties. Scottsdale is experiencing the largest landlord meltdown of 2025. The city became the symbol of speculative real estate profits, and now it has become the clearest warning. When supply overwhelms demand and investor expectations exceed fundamentals, even the most glamorous markets can unravel overnight.
These 10 cities are experiencing something America has not seen in years: a real estate investor bust. Oversupply, Airbnbs collapsing, rents dropping, and landlords unable to keep up with rising costs. The boom built on cheap money and heavy speculation is finally breaking apart. And this list is only the beginning. If you want more deep investigations into the places shaping America's housing future, make sure you subscribe to Discover the Nation. We will continue exposing the truth behind the markets everyone is watching. More stories are coming.